So I'm just going to say that again. Oh, and then sorry, that's my bird clock. If you can hear it, it's 1 o'clock.
My mother has one of those.
I love it. I love it. Um, Jefferson Glassy here with the Planetary Gig Society, Chief Spiritual Dude. Our mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace, and we are doing concerts for democracy because democracy is so important. And as my friend Joseph Wooten says, democracy needs music and music needs democracy. And I'm really, really excited to be able to introduce today two wonderful musicians and friends, Sparky and Rhonda Rucker. How are you all doing?
Doing pretty
Doing
pretty well.
okay. Zeta has gone past us and heading towards you, and we survived it. So I'm
Yeah,
praying for you, Jeff.
yeah. It's not really bright and sunny like the Potomac looks right now. It's pretty rainy here in the Washington D.C. area, here in Studio One of the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society. Yeah, that's what we call it. It's really sort of my basement office, but got to make the best of things. But you know, Sparky and Rhonda are really amazing multi-instrumentalist authors, storytellers, historians. It's hard to, folklorist. It's hard to really mention all the things that they are, and you should check out the Sparky and Rhonda webpage to see all the information and find out about them. But um, Sparky and I had the chance not too long ago. We were doing a Planetary Gig Talk live discussion on protest and intentional songs, and it was really great to catch up. Sparky actually taught my son Max at the Blues Week at Augusta Heritage Center at Davis and Elkins College in Elkins, West Virginia, years ago. And as I say, it was great to catch up, and we had some good conversation. And I just thought, boy, I think the world now needs a little bit of Sparky and Rhonda to really sort of hear the real deal about music that's been played over the years in support of democracy, our freedoms, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, etc. So, um, you know, what do you have in store for us today? How are you doing? What you got some stories for us? Any little background information, historical information? Just
Yeah, well, the soundtrack of the revolution. Every every movement that has happened in this world, Jeff, has had music to go along with it because we as social animals, which is why this virus is running us crazy, is because we really like to congregate together. We like to sing and make joy. And if there's a task, even the men on the chain gangs, they would sing songs that help the task to go easier and whatnot. So what we're thinking to do today, and I'm glad you asked us to be on this, is to sing some songs from various movements, and then talk about how freedom is a constant struggle. It is a constant struggle. It's once you set something in motion and say, okay, we've got this law, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be there. And we know that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was gutted by this current Supreme Court minus the latest edition. It's a constant struggle, my friends. You need to go out there and vote. Many people died to give you that right. Don't let their deaths be in vain. This is not the last time you're going to hear me preach, because I am on fire about this. It's my country too. It's worth saving. Down with the tyrant.
down with the tyrants for sure.
But we're going to start off with a song that was written by a female activist
Yes, indeed.
from my home state of Kentucky. In fact, this song has had a long life, and since its inception, it has run through lots and lots of movements. People change the words, people, recycle it and sing it again. And because of that, it's been one of the most famous songs to be sung by activists. But the person that wrote it, her name was Florence Reese from Harlan County, Kentucky. And this was back in 1931, back the year that my mother was born. And there was a war going on in eastern Kentucky in those days. It was a war between the coal mining companies and the coal miners, or the unions. And Florence Reese's husband, Sam, was a coal miner and a union leader. And then there was this man, the sheriff in town, named J.H. Blair.
Boo!
Boo.
J.H. Blair. He had it in for the Reeses because of, he was just against everything they stood for, against miners' rights. And in fact, he even came to the Reese household with a bunch of thugs one evening. And he was gonna gun Sam Reese down. He was gonna kill him. And he knocked on their door, and Florence answered. And she told him that he wasn't home, which was true. But they barged in anyway, ransacked the house, and when they didn't find him, they set up watch outside. They were going to gun him down when he came home. And meanwhile, Sam got wind of what was going on, and he made himself scarce that night, didn't come back. But, and because of that, saved his life.
Yeah.
But Florence was left inside that house with her 7 children, with those gun thugs sitting outside. Scary night. And things were tense, obviously. And some words came to her. She tore off a page of a wall calendar and wrote them down, put them to the tune of a song that people knew. And it became one of the most famous songs in labor history. Off a page of a wall calendar and wrote him down.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm gonna let you all. I'm gonna get off the video here and let you continue this story.
Anyway, it became so famous that people would bring it up in another, like the civil rights movement. They brought up the song and they changed the words, tweaked them a little bit, and they sang it again. And in lots, even on the other side of the world during the Arab Spring, people were singing it. People have sung it up in Madison, Wisconsin during the troubles up there. You probably know it. I know it's hard with these online concerts, but you can sing along.
Which side are
I really do love that song. I have to tell you, I first remember hearing it. Hazel Dickens
Yeah.
saw a recording of her singing it in, I don't know, the '60s or something. And just like you said, Rhonda, I got a version of that song. I changed the words around. It's such a wonderful, great tune.
Well, the whole struggle that was going on at that time was union. When workers can negotiate the safest and the best deal for themselves to make sure that they survive the days in the mines, and the struggle was still going on. This song was written in 1931. It was still going on in 1972 when I left school teaching and moved first to Berea, Kentucky, to be on the staff of the Council of the Southern Mountains. And the council was basically for lack of a better word, a clearinghouse for various organizations in Southern Appalachia that was trying to make life better, trying to be politically correct, trying to make sure we didn't destroy the environment while trying to make a living. And it published a monthly newspaper called Mountain Life and Work, and there were only 5 of us on staff. We started out in Berea, Kentucky with 2 men and 4, six of us, 2 men and 4 women. And then finally, somebody came up with the bright idea we needed to move the organization down to southwestern Virginia, in Clintwood, Virginia, in Dickinson County. And at that time, we were trying to help the people in that area to get the miners union recognized. At this time, there was no no recognition of black lung as being a disease. The mob had basically taken over the union. There was a guy named Tony Boyle who murdered his way into being the president of the UMWA, murdered Jock Yablonsky and members of his family. And at this time there was a documentary made called Harlan County, USA. If you've never seen it, check it out. I'm not in the documentary, but that's when I was there working, and there was actually the war going on then between the miners and the mine owners, and a lot of scab work and whatnot. It was a dangerous time, and I said, well, let me take what I learned in the civil rights movement in terms of songs and organizing, and go up to try to help some of my brothers and sisters in the eastern Kentucky and southwestern Virginia and West Virginia, trying to get these rights recognized. And instead of people saying I was there on their side, racism reared its ugly head. Mm. And I had my life threatened. And so, the way the owners and the 1% has always worked is they turn us against each other. We should be allies, not enemies, because it's all of us that are going to benefit if we collectively bargain. But if we let these people turn us against each other and whatnot, and look at how racism has reared its ugly head again in this country that claims to be the freest country on the planet. Freedom, my friends, is a constant struggle. So I began to realize that even though there I was willing to try to help these people, maybe I best help myself first. And that's when I finally went from being a school teacher to being an organizer to being a folk musician, all in the course of 1 year. When I was in high school, in fact, Rhonda wrote a book about my first civil rights demonstration when I was a kid. But by the time I was in high school, I was very much
great.
I was very much involved, and the way I was involved was as a musician. because you always need song leaders in movements. And a lot of times we would take old songs and just change the words. The original line in this song said, "Keep your hands on the plow, hold on." We said we've had our hands on the plow for 350 some odd years and nothing much has changed. Maybe we better raise our sights, keep our eyes on the prize. Paul and Silas, they were bound in jail, had no money for to go their bill. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Paul and Silas, they began to shout, jail doors open and they walked out. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. You know the only thing we did wrong, stayed in the wilderness a day too long. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. And the only thing that we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Won't you hold on, hold on, keep your eyes on the prize. You know beyond the change we can stand, brothers and sisters walking hand in hand. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Won't you hold on, hold on, won't you keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. One more time, won't you hold on, hold on, won't you keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Frog
You
in my
gonna
throat.
live?
I
And
think the frog is rapidly changing into a handsome prince. I better get it out of there fast before it chokes me.
so great. Such passion, fabulous harmonies. Man, the harmonica was great. It was so wonderful. And
And that song was probably one of the first that I learned during the movement. And the thing is, that keep your hands on the plow, which was the first thing. My grandfather, John Lindsay Rucker, Bishop John Lindsay Rucker, that's him there, the second picture over. And he was the bishop of the Church of God, Sanctified Church. And when your granddad is the bishop and two of your uncles are the preachers, You go to a lot of church,
Yeah, I guess so.
and we went to church 3 to 4 days a week. I mean, you had your basic Sunday. Everybody got to go on Sunday,
Hmm.
but then they had Wednesday prayer meeting, and then you had Saturday HYPU holding this Young People's Union, and then all of a sudden there you are back in church again. And then some of them days they would have 2 services, and so you'd think, well, they're gonna let me go home to eat, but then no, we brought in food for you, so you got no excuse. And when you're a kid, you're sitting there with a little suit on all day long, and you're sitting up there, your legs are too short to go all the way to the floor. You're sitting there, and your feet are swinging, and everybody's shouting, and it's hot in them churches because them black churches didn't have an air conditioner. They raised up the window. People got their fans and sweating and whatnot, wiping the sweat and jumping up and down, and the heat's rising. But I do look back with fondness on those days now that nobody can force me to go. But Wednesday night was especially good because it was the night that the piano player didn't show up sometimes. And some of those we used to call them old saints, they stand up and start singing one of them old songs that was no longer in the hymnal. And that's where I learned so many of those older songs, was listening to those people. And let me tell you, Jeff, everybody in that church could sing.
Yeah.
No duds in that church.
I grew up in the Catholic Church, and we all just kind of.
And it was in a language you didn't understand.
I know we missed out on so much, but there was so much about community in that, it seems, and probably even more so. If you go back 50, 100 years or something. And Sparky, one of the things that you mentioned when we had the Planetary Gig Talk live discussion, and Elijah Wald said this too, was that the songs that were being sung by the people in the marches or wherever it was about the music, but it was really about community. Isn't that what you were sort of saying, that the protest songs were really about getting people together in the community?
Yeah, and giving people the strength to know that there were strength in numbers and to face the adversity. There were times when, to get to a meeting or get to a place, I had to cross through KKK picket lines. And this is when I was in my teens,
Mm.
And the thing is, I was sort of afraid, but when you're young, you feel immortal, and you'd say, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to wait for the elders to do it. I'm going to do it myself. And all of a sudden, as we were talking before we went live, all of a sudden I'm one of the old people now. In fact, real quick, let me show you a picture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man, that's cool. Which one is you? Sorry, it's a little.
I'm the skinny one. This is me.
Whoa, man, what a stud.
Yeah, and got as we call them, mammy made bell bottoms. I couldn't afford to buy the bell bottoms, so we would take an old pair of jeans and split them up to the knee, and then you add an extra piece of cloth in there that made them flare out. We in Tennessee were maybe about 5 years behind San Francisco in terms of fashion, so you couldn't just go to the store and buy some bell bottoms. You had to make them, and your mother would make your dashiki for you, and whatnot. That period of time to me was the most exciting because I knew then I was making a change in the world, and that's why I feel so good about these young people, the millennials that are coming along. I feel like I've finally gotten some reinforcements, people that want to save this planet and save the people on it, to make sure that we adhere to the laws that we've made. Don't try to disenfranchise voters. Let every person have a vote, have a say, at least once every year or once every 4 years in terms of presidential elections. We can't let these people take away these rights that we fought so hard to obtain. In fact, the song that we want to do next is about the women's
Yeah.
right to vote.
Yeah, this is a song from the suffrage movement, which didn't have the didn't exactly have the soundtrack of the civil rights movement. They did use a lot of old songs and did do a lot of parodies and things like that. But some of them, I'll just have to say it, were flat out bad songs, you know. And I mean that in the sense that they're, you know, like sometimes, in fact, the song I'm going to do, the chorus would change every time. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me.
The chorus has to be the same.
But the chorus is for everybody to sing along, and you need it to be the same every time. You know, that's just songwriting, good songwriting 101. So I don't do it that way.
Right.
I picked what I thought was the best chorus, or the one that worked the best, and stuck with it each time. But this song, I'd like to tell the story about our home state of Tennessee before I do this one, because it's just such a great story.
Yeah.
In 1919, the U.S. legislature, decided they would pass the amendment, the 19th Amendment, the one granting women the right to vote. But that's not the end of an amendment. It then has to go out to all the states to be ratified. Well, that took months, as you can imagine, and went into 1920. And it came down to one state, Tennessee. And they were getting nervous because some of the people that had supported the amendment had fled to the opposition, or they were sitting on the fence now and weren't quite sure what they were going to do. And they finally held a vote. It was a tie. So they did a lot more talking. But they didn't know where they were going to get that other vote. And just kept going around trying to talk people, trying to convince people and everything. And eventually the day came for another vote. They didn't know how it was going to turn out. But there was a man from not too far from us here down in McMinn County, Tennessee, down where your folks, your ancestors come from, Sparky, down in McMinn County. His name was Harry Byrne. He was a young guy, a representative, a state representative. And he had been solidly against women's suffrage. But he showed up at the Capitol building that day with a note from his mother urging him to vote for the amendment. And in the end, that's what he did. He voted to ratify it, and that pushed it over and made it so that I can vote now. Yeah. And of course, all the reporters crowded around afterwards, were talking to him, and, he became an instant celebrity, and they, said, well, what changed your mind? And he told them, about the letter that he had gotten from his mother. And he said, and a mother's advice is always safest to follow. And as I said not too long ago, I'm a mother, and my advice is to vote. Make sure you exercise that right, because if you don't exercise a right, it'll go away.
You're not Mother Rucker.
Right. Thank you. Let us rouse the nation. Let our words all hearts inspire. Till tardy legislation grants us all we may desire. Proclaim the truth both day and night. Deny it if you can. That every woman has the right to vote as well as men. Come along. Uncle Sam's Daughter.
Woohoo, great tune.
Yeah.
Didn't know about that. Didn't know that story either. You know,
Yeah, it's a great story. Yeah.
it's like that book that John Kennedy wrote, Profiles in Courage.
Uh-huh.
This is really a time for that too.
Yeah.
Um, and
Get you some lemon juice.
one thing I want to mention is that, you know, we're doing these concerts for democracy, and we call them concerts for democracy because we'd like for them to be, we would like that there would be a lot of them. We've done a few. I think this is about our fifth that we've done with musicians from all around. And, you know, it doesn't even stop at election day. And as I said, the Joseph Wooten quote, democracy needs music and music needs democracy. You know, and as Rhonda was saying, I mean, it's just really important for musicians to get out there and speak your piece and, you know, sing. And everybody is so powerful, and it can just take one person to make a big difference. I love that quote, Sparky, that you say about you feel like you've been keeping your finger in the dike for all these years. You know, one person can make a lot of difference.
Yeah, and the thing is, as a historian, the more I've read about the things that happened, even during the time that I was actively involved in the civil rights movement, a man named Taylor Branch wrote a trilogy of books, the first of which won the Pulitzer Prize. And he, in correlating all the stories, helped me to understand events that I was part of, because I only knew the event from my point of view. But to read Taylor Branch's books, I tell you, they're an amazing record of what was going on at the time. You know, two events happened that pushed Lyndon Johnson into signing the 1965 Voting Rights Act. One was the brutal murder of 3 civil rights workers down in Mississippi: Andrew Goodman, Michael Schwerner, and James Chaney. It was during the Freedom Summer of 1964 that COFO, Council of Federated Organizations, enlisted people from SNCC and CORE and various organizations, and to also go into colleges and invite college students to go down to Mississippi to try to register people to vote. And those 3 names that I mentioned, Schwerner, Chaney, and Goodman, were members of COFO. Andrew Goodman had just arrived in Mississippi when they went to inspect a church that had been firebombed, and on the way back they were arrested by the sheriff, and in the middle of the night he released them, and the sheriff and some of his deputies and some of the other members of the Klan, on a lonely highway in Mississippi, pulled them over, severely beat them, murdered all 3, and the bodies disappeared. And this was the summer just before I started into college, in the fall of 1964. And nobody knew what had happened to them. Nobody knew the story that I just told you, because they had just disappeared. The authorities said, "Oh, well, you know how you people are. You just probably made this up." It's a play on the same word of fake news. I'm just pointing this out, people. History repeats itself.
Yep.
And finally, the cousin of one of the men who killed them turned state's evidence, and they were able to find the bodies buried in an earthen dam. That incident and John Lewis and the civil rights workers crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge there at Selma, Alabama, were the 2 things that pushed Lyndon Johnson into signing that Voting Rights Act that the Supreme Court has gutted, which is why there's so many lawsuits now going through the courts about how we're going to count these ballots. These people will steal the election. And there's proof of this, not the made up myth that 45 uses when he talks to his crowd.
Yeah.
Vote, people. Don't wait to do it. Don't do it by mail. You walk that thing to the Commission on Elections. You give them that ballot if you want it counted. Don't take anything for granted. Don't let the polls make you think you can just sit at home. If this election doesn't go to where it saves this planet and this country of ours that I love so dearly, that I've put my life on the line so many times to protect, don't let this opportunity go by. You make sure. If they take away the health care, people I love, my wife and my son will lose their health care. There's so much at stake. Here's a good book written by William Bradford Huey. He was a reporter. This thing came out just before they knew what had happened to the young men.
Mm. Yeah, William
Three
Bradford.
Lives from Mississippi. They've also made a film of it.
Okay.
My mother took Rhonda to see it one time when I was touring.
Oh, Mississippi Burning.
Yeah, Mississippi Burning is the name of the movie. So, I was 9 years old when a young boy, 14-year-old boy from Chicago, went down to Mississippi to visit his great uncle. And because he was from Chicago, he didn't understand the way Jim Crow laws were in the South. He was falsely, as has been recently found out, falsely accused of accosting a white woman clerk at the store. She just recently admitted she lied about this. Her husband and his clan buddies came to the great uncle's house, pounded on the door, pulled him out, beat him severely, the young 14-year-old boy, attached a cotton gin to his body and threw him in the river. And that young man's name was Emmett Till. When they found his body, it was so bloated, they sent it back to his mother. And through all of her pain and grief, she said, I want an open casket funeral for my son because I want the world to see what they did to my baby so nobody else's mother will have to go through this. She didn't want her son to be a martyr, but she stepped forward. The picture was in all the magazines. I remember seeing it as a kid. Scared me to death seeing the picture of that young boy. It was in the papers in Montgomery, Alabama, when a seamstress climbed aboard a segregated bus, paid her fare, sat in the back where she was supposed to sit. The bus driver told her to give up her seat for a white man, and she said, no. He said, I'm going to call a cop. She said, you do what you got to do. I'm doing what I've got to do. Her name was Rosa Parks. And the whole town became upset about what they had done to a woman without stain or a woman who had done nothing wrong. And for over a year, they walked. They boycotted those buses. And to plan this organization, they said, we need somebody who can lead us. We got to find a place to meet. Well, there was a young 26-year-old minister from Atlanta, Georgia, who was now in Montgomery, Alabama. And they said, he has no politics following him. Let's have our meetings at his church. And that young 26-year-old minister's name was Martin Luther King Jr. None of these people said, I want to be a martyr for the cause. My God, if he didn't say, I want to give my life for the cause. But people have to step up and do their part. There's no free ride. Everybody has to right the ship of state. If you miss me in the back of the bus, you can't find me nowhere. Oh, come on up to the front of the bus. I'll be riding right there. I'll be riding right there. I'll be riding right there. Oh, bus, I'll be riding right there. If you miss me in the cotton fields, you can't find me nowhere. Oh, come on down to City Hall, I'll be voting right there. You know I'll be voting right there. I'll be voting right there. Oh, come on down to City Hall, I'll be voting right there. If you miss me in the Mississippi River, you can't find me nowhere. Oh, come on down to the city pool, I'll be swimming right there. Children, I'll be swimming right there. Glory, I'll be swimming right there. Oh, come on down to the city pool, I'll be swimming right there.
Woo. Yeah, thank you. I just admire what you've done all these years and your passion, and so much that others of us need to know. I certainly recognize I had a lot of privilege in my life and have learned a lot recently. Man, I fell in love with those old Alan Lomax and John Lomax recordings, the field recordings. Just beautiful music and all. But I would suggest people might want to check out a couple books by Isabel Wilkerson, The Warmth of Other Suns and Cast, which puts an entirely different light on some of the things that are going on. I mean, I don't know how any people could be as mean and cruel as in the South during that time. It's
And
shameful.
and people kept loving them anyway. That was Martin Luther King's message. It was, we've got to love, the strength to love. When you can, in adversity, love your enemy. That was taught to us by Jesus. It was taught to us by Muhammad. It was taught to us by Buddha. It was taught to us by Krishna. All the avatars of God have told us the same thing. Love one another. God is love.
Well, these songs are so powerful and moving. I love hearing you do them. What else you got for us?
Well, it's another one from the movement. A lot of the movement songs for the civil rights movement, were old songs, like slave songs that, in fact, that I always say that's a kind of a message that when you can sing a song that's 400 years old and it's still relevant, there's a message in there somewhere.
Yes, indeed.
And then some songs like Hold On that he did, they changed the words a little bit. Keep your hands on the plow. They changed the Keep your eyes on the prize. But some songs they wrote, some were new songs. And that's one of what this is. It was written by James Bevel and Bernard Lafayette. And James Bevel talked about this song. In fact, James Bevel was one of the organizers for the Birmingham Children's March. And Birmingham was about the most segregated city in the South. It was a hard nut to crack. And and King was very reluctant to come there because he had just been on the heels of being down in Georgia and having not a very successful time there. And they were asking him to come to Birmingham, and he just kept resisting it. But he finally did. But he was reluctant to try Birmingham. But fortunately, he came there. But it was a terrible city for people to live in. There have been so many bombings in that town that African Americans started calling it Bombingham. And that's what the historical novel that I wrote, and it was released about a year ago, called Welcome to Bombingham, is about Birmingham and leads up to the Birmingham Children's March, which like I said, James Bevel helped organize. He was a real firebrand and helped teach the kids how to demonstrate how to, taught them nonviolence. And anyway, he said that when he grew up, about this song that we're going to do, he grew up there in a black neighborhood, of course, but he could see the white neighborhood from his house. And he would ask his mother, you know, when he was little, he didn't understand about this segregation thing, and he'd say, let me go over there and play with that kid. No, sorry, it's not allowed. Well, you know, little white kids, they don't understand either. You know, this racism, racism and hatred have to be taught. Yeah. And so anyway, no, you can't go over there and play with, you know, that other kid. So, you know, they're taught these things. But James Bevel said he noticed something else. He said he noticed that his dog didn't have any problems going over there and playing with that other kid's dog. And so he said, you know, look at the dogs of the world. I mean, they come in all colors, right? You know, you got a black dog, he'll play with a white dog will play with a yellow dog play with a red dog play. They don't care what color they are. They're just ready to play and have a good time. So they wrote this song called Dog Dog. And I'm going to play the bones on this song. It's a really old instrument. People would use rib bones from an animal. And you know how ribs are, you know, curved. So you put them back to back and put a couple fingers. I put 2 fingers between. People play them differently. Sometimes people put 1 finger between.
If
and
they
then,
have fat fingers in you.
And then if you wave your hand basically and just kind of let it do what it does. But I guess it did take some practice.
Not easy. It's not easy, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a while to learn how to play these. I think you could learn if you put the effort in.
Yeah. I'm an old dog. I don't need any new tricks.
You play spoons. They're actually, you put the spoons back to back and there's a little space in there and hit it against something and that makes a sound. So that's a different one. Anyway, we're going to do this song called Dog Dog. My dog loves your dog.
Your dog loves my dog. My dog loves your dog. And your dog loves my dog. And why can't we sit under the apple tree?
My little doggy was playing one day.
Said dog, 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 dog.
Down in the meadow by a bundle of hay.
Said dog, 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 dog.
Another little doggy came along.
Said dog, 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 dog.
He said,
let's get together and eat this bone. Dog, 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 dog. Then why can't we sit under the apple tree? You walk with me. You talk with me. Why can't you hold my hand? Tell me you understand now. Can't you see that you and me would be happy? We're gonna sit under the apple tree. My dog loves your dog. Your dog loves my dog. My dog loves your dog. Your dog loves my dog. Why can't we sit under the apple tree? Talk about a rabbit dog. Talk about a hound dog. Talk about a coon dog. Talk about a bird dog. Talk about a watch dog. Talk about a bulldog. I said, why can't we sit under the apple tree?
Oh man, that's a fun song.
We probably went into the red on that one.
That was so fun. And
I think you said socialist.
They might.
such great lyrics too. Simple but very powerful.
Yeah. It's a great song for kids because you know of the message there. It's just really
talking about the dogs and what.
Yeah, and I do know down at the Archie Edwards Blues Heritage Foundation, Archie's Barbershop in D.C., we had a fella down there, Richard Thomas, called him Mr. Bones.
Right.
Man, he could play the bones. He was his arms were all windmilling and stuff around, and And he talked about how he used to, put them up on the actual bones up on the roof and let them dry for a month or something. I mean, it was crazy, but I have tried that, and I do play spoons, and I consider myself actually pretty good on the spoons.
A spoon aficionado, right?
Yeah, but I can't play those bones. That's too much. I can't do it. Anyway, that was really great. Thank you so much.
I think it's part of my European heritage makes me not be able to play them.
That's Scandinavian.
Yeah, that's
descent.
that's
That 1%
Scandinavian.
Scandinavian.
We're going to do one last song for you,
Awesome.
and oh, I just lost my fingertip.
Let me try to get it back while you talk.
I
it a
don't have
favorite
anything
one?
to say.
Okay.
Let me slide over my finger here. I do appreciate you asking us to do this, Jeff. It's so important, especially this close to election.
Yeah, people still got time to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's our website. If anybody want to check us out, it's sparkyandrhonda.com, SPARKYANDRHONDA.com. We've got our CDs and books on there. And
Yeah, definitely check that out. I really appreciate you all doing this. Okay, I'll give you the big screen here.
Don't forget to sing along at home. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom. We shall not be moved. Fighting for our freedom. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We're marching up to victory. We shall not be moved. Marching up to victory. Shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be We're young and old together. We shall not be moved. Young and old together. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. And we shall not be moved. Oh, come on now. We shall not be. Sing a little louder. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be. One last time we're singing. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be
Beautiful, beautiful. Man, my skin was tingling during that song, and I was singing along over here. I was muted, so I didn't want anybody to hear me. But um, well, thank you so much. This has really been great. These are really wonderful, inspirational songs. Just like to ask anybody out there, if you see this, share it. But more importantly, you can check out the Planetary Gig Site website and go to Concerts for Democracy with some ideas about doing your own concert for democracy, putting it out there any way you want. I know we're all in our homes, but you see that we can do these things from our homes. And so musicians, democracy needs us. This is the time. And it's not going to stop at election day. We're going to keep
I know
doing
we talked
it.
all about things that happened in the past, but the past is present.
It's coming back. Yeah.
And don't give up hope. Like Rhonda will tell you, I am an eternal optimist. There have been some low points because I'm getting so worn out. I thought at this advanced age that I wouldn't have to do this, but looks like I have to keep doing this because I want to save this world. I think it's worth saving. It's very unique in this universe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. One person can do it. And I mean, I'm trying too, just, we're all in there together. So Rhonda, Sparky, thanks so much. Everybody's got your website, beautiful music, and we'll, see everybody down the road.
Thank you,
Have a
Jefferson.
nice day. Yeah,
Take
yeah,
care. Yeah. Stay in touch.
yeah.